The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up.
Kyoto, Bolt fam, Chargers fans all over the world, and I'm sure plenty of Dallas Cowboys fans in the chat today, concluding the Chargers' epic collapse. Chargers ending this game 20-17, unfortunately on the wrong side of the scoreboard. They're going to drop this one versus the Dallas Cowboys in one of the weirdest games I can remember as a Chargers fan. Weirdness week after the bye week, week 7. I think for a majority of this game, some of the strangest outcomes, some of the strangest circumstances, some of the strangest plays I've ever seen clumped into one setting certainly made for an interesting watch for Chargers fans, and I'm sure Cowboys fans as well, who fortunately for Dallas fans ended up on top this week. There is a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the future of the Chargers, what this team in terms of consequences of this loss are looking forward to going into the future. Of course, you got the Kansas City Chiefs coming up here very soon. That's going to be a tough break for Chargers, who are now 2-3 in terms of a hole climbing out of. So let's go ahead and get things ready here on the Bleacher Report side, show you guys some of our statages, and just try and figure out what in the heck went wrong for the Los Angeles Chargers in this one. And again, just trying to sort out some of the weirdness that we saw here. Oops, we actually have the wrong thing on there real quick. Give me 1 second here, guys. There we go. All right. Perfect. So the Los Angeles Chargers, again, I don't know about you guys, but some of the plays that we saw this week in terms of even some of the things in terms of like, what are you going to do to defend that? I don't know if I've seen anything quite like that in some time. One of the biggest plays I think that I want to highlight for the Dallas Cowboys was a 3rd and long. Dak Prescott, lots of heat on him, lots of pressure, starts scrambling out of the pocket, starts getting sacked, throws it cross-body, hits Tony Pollard, who looks like he's going to get tackled after picking up the first down, then takes off for almost a touchdown, being saved by Asante Samuel Jr. at the last second. That kind of stuff, I think, perfectly defines the weirdness that we experienced here in week 6 of the Chargers versus Cowboys. And it went both ways. Of course, the Chargers had a lot of things going for them in terms of the luck, as well as against them. A lot of people will say that the Chargers and Cowboys have this energy about them where it's like you should win the games that you're losing, you should be losing games that you're winning. It's a familiar concept for Chargers and Cowboys fans at this point, which at this point, it almost feels like one weirdness or one team out-choked the other, and that's kind of the result that we ended up here with. And to kind of describe that, I want to go through some of the stats here. So we'll start off here with the Dallas Cowboys. Chargers defense, I think in terms of effort and what we were facing, did an okay job. There are things that they did that I think certainly need to be commended. For one, the sacks this week, 5 sacks. I think the most that Dak Prescott has had this year. That's something to be celebrated if you're a Chargers fan. I know Morgan Fox is going crazy. I know Khalil Mack got in there. The Chargers, in terms of generating heat, it's something that I was hoping would define the team defensively at this point of the season. And fortunately for the Chargers, that is something that's starting to consistently become a factor in every single week. The Chargers should be leading or among the leaders of sacks in the season so far. And that didn't change this week versus the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately for the Chargers, when you see sack numbers like that, you're hoping for it to translate into more possessions, right? Forced fumbles, errant throws by the quarterback, picked off by Derwin James, Asante Samuel. As a result of that sack, turnover on downs. And maybe we did see more of that, but at this point, it doesn't feel like it's happening enough. The Chargers aren't capitalizing enough on that number. I'm hoping to see that return or at least improve going forward. Dak Prescott had a solid day. Didn't score the touchdowns, but had good yardage. And certainly when you add up the rushing yardage on top of that, and even the rushing touchdown, you can say that Dak had a pretty great day, eclipsing 300 yards, 2 total touchdowns. It was a tough stop. It was a tough order for the Chargers to slow down Dak, and Dak in the end, I think, put the team on his back and helped them reach victory at the end there. The Chargers, surprisingly on defense, also did a pretty good job at containing Tony Pollard, who's one of the better running backs in the league. 15 attempts, 30 yards, easy math there, 2 yards per carry, along for 7. the Chargers did a good job in slowing down the run. Unfortunately, they continue to prove that it's a tough game for them in terms of slowing down and stopping the rushing quarterback. And funny enough, somebody in my live chat pointed that out, like, hey, we're doing good versus the run and Tony Pollard. But if Dak Prescott is unlocked and he starts running all over us, that's something that we are even worse against when it comes to running defense. And unfortunately for the Chargers, Dak Prescott, when given the opportunity, racked up 40 yards and a score. Outside of that rushing, got a couple of trick plays here. Dowdle, you got Brandon Cooks. It was a decent day on the ground for the Dallas Cowboys. A tough break for the Chargers. Now, in terms of receivers, this was a game that I was worried that the Dallas Cowboys would get CeeDee Lamb back on track. And unfortunately, this fear was certainly lived out as CeeDee Lamb eclipsed 100 yards, 7 receptions. The Chargers just had no answer for this guy. And part of that, in terms of what my perspective was, it's a lot of soft coverage. I understand that Mike Davis isn't having the best season right now. But in terms of play calling, I just didn't see anything working versus CeeDee Lamb that for whatever reason wasn't adjusted to. We're going to talk about that in detail here in just a minute. But CeeDee Lamb definitely had his breakout game of the season, and unfortunately it came versus the Chargers. Tony Pollard certainly made up for the lack of rushing yards with 7 targets, 6 receptions, and 80 yards through the air. Brandon Cooks had a game-saving first down towards the end of the fourth quarter there, and of course the touchdown. And then you sprinkle in a couple of guys here and there. Just a very solid day offensively for the Dallas Cowboys, which, of course, we expected something like this to happen. But the Chargers, with a couple of breaks here and there, weren't able to capitalize and try and catch up. As far as the defense is concerned, some passes defended. I think there was one was it DeMarcus Lawrence? Yeah, definitely a huge play all over the line of scrimmage. And then passes defended by their DBs. Tough sledding for the Chargers passing team today. A lot of good defense. If anything that I got to congratulate the Dallas Cowboys on was their defense this week. In particular, you guys remember there was that 4th down try for the Chargers trying to get that touchdown. I think it was late in the first half. They go for it. They don't get it. They turn the ball over on downs. And I think at this point it was 10-7 Dallas. Now, at this point, a lot of Chargers fans are pretty upset. I think it's pretty predictable that when you go for it and you don't get it, the fans are going to be upset. I could say that I was upset a little bit as well. But in watching that play, I just got to say, man, the Dallas defense, sometimes you just got to tip your hat to the opponent and say, you made a good play. You guys were very locked down there. Every single option for Justin Herbert, including his option to scramble, was absolutely locked down. There was nothing the Chargers could have done in that play. And I think that was very representative of what I saw from the Dallas defense all day today. Dallas was just pretty locked in when it came to their defense. If it comes to, penalties and stuff, that's a different story. But the defense, they gave Justin Herbert every reason to panic at some points with the pressure. The offensive line was failing him, and the coverage was just absolutely outstanding by Dallas. So tough break for the Chargers there. Great game played by the Dallas defense, even with the time of possession pretty even there. Now let's take a look here at the Chargers side of things. To open up the Chargers side of the argument, I have to make one thing known. The Chargers had an opportunity to take this game, which in my opinion was very weird, right? I knew this was a weird game at the close of the first half, all right? Even in the first quarter, after the first drives by each team, let's say after like the 4th overall drive of the game, things started to get weird, right? The penalties were racking up. The Dallas Cowboys at one point were making their best Plexico Burress impression by shooting themselves in the foot every other down with a yellow flag. It was absolutely insane out here with how many flags were being thrown on each side. The Chargers eventually started to catch up with how many flags they were generating as well. And that, I think, contributed to one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. Outside of that, the momentum just seemed completely shot, even by both teams before the closing of the first half. And I felt the team that was able to adjust most effectively coming back out of the 2-minute war, or out of the into the second half, excuse me, would probably have the best chances at winning this game. Adjustments were so important to coming up on top and figuring out a way to overcome some of the strangeness and some of the weirdness that we're seeing on both sides. That honestly, Dallas, I don't know if they were the better adjusters. All I know is that the Chargers did not adjust well enough either. And I think mostly in this week, which is really strange because we're hoping to see this revenge game narrative by Kellen Moore. In my opinion, it was the offense that couldn't adjust and figure out a way to find success after, studying what Dallas was doing defensively this week. Now, again, I gave props to Dallas defensively. They had a really good game. They were locked down. They had a good performance, especially that defensive line. That was one thing we're all worried about, and my goodness, did they punch us in the mouth. But if you're one of these offensive coordinators that has seen so much success, not just in the past, but this season, they've vaulted the Chargers and Justin Herbert to a top 5 offense this year. We just couldn't figure it out versus Dallas. And I don't know if it was as a result of overthinking coming in and facing Dallas, trying to put out some cutesy plays. Like we saw handoffs to, the tight end and Gerald Everett. We saw direct snaps to Austin Eckler at the running back position. A lot of weird stuff that contributed to this game, but more contributed to, in my opinion, a lack of a good game called by Kellen Moore, which is disappointing. Because if there was a game where you're like, oh man, we're hoping to run up the score, drop 100, on Dallas, it would have been this week against Kellen Moore's former team. And it had a combination of things to do with it. I think the cute plays, some of the trick plays that didn't end up becoming, executed properly or just mistimed, sometimes unluckily defended. There was a beautiful play developed. I think it was a screen to Austin Eckler in the first half that I think was going to go for a touchdown. He had a blocker up in front of him, I think, in Donald Parham. Everybody, bit right, and Austin Eckler went left. And unfortunately, in that play, D-Law came out and swatted it down. I think that was a touchdown-saving play. A lot of things in terms of these trick plays, the planning, the adjusting and coming out in the second half. It just felt like the offense never found a rhythm. Unfortunately, it was that 1 week we were really hoping that wouldn't be the case. Now, to kind of start breaking down some of the stats on the Chargers offense, you would look at these stats and say, Justin Herbert didn't have a terrible day. 2 touchdowns, only 1 sack. Yes, the interception, but a total yardage of like 250 yards and 2 scores. That's not terrible. Unfortunately, your eyeballs, at least my eyeballs, kind of painted a different picture this week. And some of it's on Justin Herbert, some of it isn't. The first thing I kind of wanted to mention was the lack of a Corey Linsley on this offense. I'm telling you guys right now, Corey Linsley, and there was analytics and stats to back this up last year in some of the games that he was absent. Corey Linsley, when on the field, affects the Chargers offense maybe more than any other player on O, which is very interesting to think that a center could have that effect on any team. But it's true. When Corey Linsley's on the field, Justin Herbert and their ability to communicate with the line and provide good protection, especially for Justin Herbert, it feels like it's almost unmatched. Corey Linsley really is the heart and soul of that offensive line. And when he's off the field, again, I think statistically backed by results of last season and now this season, the Chargers just don't put up as many points. And I think we've started to see that last couple of weeks. What is the return date for Corey? I couldn't tell you. I don't know what the issue is. It's some kind of heart issue that's having him sidelined right now. Of course, above everything else, we hope that his health, improves and it's not something life-threatening. But we really do hope to see him back on the football field with the Chargers sooner than later because he does have that kind of effect with the team, and the Chargers really are missing him. So much so that there was a Twitter account that put out a tweet just before the Chargers game, before this game ended, saying, are we going to see a Justin Herbert heroic drive to win the game, or are we going to see a typical offensive line collapse that costs us any chance at a comeback? And unfortunately, it was the latter. The Chargers offensive line, when it really counted, what did we see? A sack by Micah Parsons, and then a hurry-up throw by Justin Herbert under pressure that resulted in the interception. Offensive line, man, it's important. And we faced a team with one of the best in the league, and unfortunately, we got punched in the mouth. Hopefully, we see Corey Linsley back. I know that would help improve the situation, but the Chargers got to start thinking about maybe what life was like back in Justin Herbert's rookie season. The blocking was terrible. We didn't have Rashawn Slater and Zion Johnson and all these other guys yet. The Chargers had to figure out a way to get Justin Herbert some time and some flexibility and maybe some, escaping the pocket in order to make that offense work at all. Might need to start thinking about that a little bit as we wait for Corey Linsley to return. Now, what about the things that Justin Herbert was responsible for? Well, there were a couple of plays in particular that I think really stood out to me that say and paint the picture and tell the story that something's not quite right with Justin Herbert. I think it's very easy for us to conclude it has something to do with that hand injury. And of course, it's not always going to be the case. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it has nothing to do with it. But in my opinion, I saw a version of Justin Herbert that I'm not familiar with. And that's a version of Justin Herbert that was just missing, plain out missing open receivers. Twice, that receiver was Keenan Allen. And twice, in my opinion, Keenan was positioned to go all the way for a touchdown. Imagine if that pass was hit. Imagine with the kind of effect that a touchdown by Keenan Allen in the third or fourth quarter, or whenever it may have been, would have had in the result of this game. Now, the reason I think it could be the hand that's affecting it, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm the director, but just using my whatever you want to call common sense, I think everybody's kind of got a balance determining, the health and the strength of your feet and your hands. And sometimes when you've got one that's injured, or you've got one that you're favoring, your balance is off a little bit. And sometimes when your balance is off, your equilibrium is off, sometimes your accuracy can be affected. Again, that's just me speculating. I'm not saying, anything official here. I'm just saying I'm speculating that something's wrong with Justin Herbert. His balance seems off, and it feels like he's missing some throws. And a couple of times this game, I think the accuracy was a big problem. We're hoping to see Justin Herbert come back. Again, that injury shouldn't be a big deal, but he was missing throws that he really doesn't miss very often. He was making reads. I think fewer of these, but I did notice a couple of times that Josh Palmer was available. He didn't hit him. First downs are on the line. The health of a drive is on the line. The read wasn't made. It just seemed like a very off day for Justin Herbert. I think in the end, he put forth a valiant effort. He was getting thrown around. He was getting sacked. There was a lot of heat, a lot of, maybe contact that shouldn't have been there. Either way, he did a good job. I think he deserves a pat on the back, but there is obviously something off, and we're hoping to see him return to form as we continue to get closer to that game versus Kansas City, because, man, that's going to be a tough one. Now, another big narrative of this game, Austin Eckler, 14 attempts, 27 yards, an average of 2 yards per carry. The Chargers' run game is kaput right now. Until the Chargers can get this run game back on track, even to a mediocre level, like this is so bad. Just get it to kind of like below average level. We're hitting somewhere closer to like 2.5 yards a carry. Something, 2.1, anything, right? Help us out here, Kellen Moore. We got to get this run game back on track. It was a pitiful outing. We're hoping to see way more results from the return of Austin Eckler. Of course, we're going up against a very good defensive line, but still, it just felt like nothing ever grabbed their footing. Nobody ever grabbed their footing in the run game. We put this game on Justin Herbert. Again, valiant effort by him, but it's a narrative I've seen before very many times, and I don't know how much I want to continue leaning on Herbert that aggressively. As for the receivers, Keenan Allen's out there doing Keenan Allen things. 7 receptions, 11 targets. He was absolutely fantastic. 85 yards and a touchdown. To see what he can do without Mike Williams is going to be very important going forward. Of course, Mike Williams is going to offer more opportunity for a guy like Keenan Allen to get open and make, big plays. And of course, Keenan did that several times this game. Josh Palmer stepped into a role where we didn't even know if he was going to suit up this week. The receivers, I think, did a pretty decent job and kind of came to what, I expected as far as a result from them. The one thing that I think the Chargers and its fans, I don't think it's quite time to hit the panic button yet, but I think it's fair that we should all say we are concerned at this point. Chargers fans, I will admit and I will confess, I am concerned about Quentin Johnston. I think I'm at that point where I'm like, what is going on with QJ1? The Chargers gave up premium draft capital, a first-round pick, ahead of some other prospects who have been having a more fruitful rookie season for QJ. At what spot was it? 21 this season? That's a pretty hefty price. And most of the time, when a team invests that high on a rookie receiver, especially in the modern NFL, when you invest that high on a receiver, even a running back, they're usually pretty involved with their rookie season. It used to be that you want to really, smooth these guys' roles and their careers into the NFL. It's really massage their, comfort into the pros. Nowadays, that's not the case. Nowadays, you want to get these guys involved. And the Chargers early in the season have been put in a position where they don't have Mike Williams, right? They lost their star receiver. They have a pretty similar guy in Quentin Johnston. Sure, their skill set's a little different, but they got a guy they gave up a lot of draft capital for that I was 100% expecting to see involved in this offense pretty early, despite whatever happened with the health of the other receivers. We didn't see that. in a game where I really thought if there was ever a moment that you unleash whatever it is you're saving in Quentin Johnston, whatever potential you drafted Quentin Johnston for, I was hoping it would be in this game versus Dallas. And we didn't see it. We saw 2 targets, be it they were very well, I think one of them was off target. There was pressure in Justin Herbert's face, so he couldn't get the ball to Quentin Johnston. He didn't even reach him. It was thrown very short. And the other one was thrown, I think it was the result of the interception at the end in double coverage or whatever. Bad targets or bad opportunities for Quentin Johnston, but just a misuse. Either a misuse of Quentin Johnston or a lack of skill by Quentin Johnston. I haven't quite decided which one it is yet, because I've seen images and footage of Quentin Johnston getting open, just not getting targeted by Justin Herbert. But on the other hand, are we seeing Quentin Johnston get open enough where Justin Herbert's built that comfort to target him and look his way, in any given drive? It's still Keenan Allen's team as far as wide receivers. I think Josh Palmer has certainly earned the trust of Justin Herbert at this point, but I need to see more out of these TCU receivers. I was really hoping to see that this week. I was really hoping to see, especially as we were wondering, is Josh Palmer going to play this week? I was hoping to see a better game plan revolving around and designed around number 1, Quentin Johnston, come out in this game. And we saw almost no involvement from QJ. As a matter of fact, he was on the sideline a lot this game. What is going on with Quentin Johnston? You guys in the comment section below, let me know. I think it's still too early to say, hey, this guy's a bust or he's, maybe a bad pick by the Chargers. I still think it's way, way too early to say something like that. But I am concerned at his lack of involvement in the offense coming into what now, week 7 of the NFL season. This isn't 2010 where you ease your receivers in. We're in 2023 where a first-round receiver makes first-round differences throughout the course of a year. And we haven't seen that so far from QJ. Outside of that, defensively, again, nod to the defense. Defense, I think, had some big moments this game. Some of them lack thereof, like Michael Davis. He had a couple of plays, but nod to the pass rushers. Khalil Mack got in there for the sack. He was all over. Nick Williams. Tuli Tuipulotu, maybe his first struggle game of the season. He did make a difference later on and kind of make up for it. Veteran Nick Williams got in there for a big sack. Austin Johnson was doing great. I think the defense, for lack of a better term, they're not as responsible for the loss this week. But, there are moments where we could have definitely said, hey, a little extra effort here, a little bit more awareness there. Maybe the defense could have been the difference in that 20-17 score. Well, guys, let me know in the comment section here. What do you guys think of this week? It was a weird one. I'm going to call it Weirdness Week. Weirdness Week 6 Chargers versus Dallas Cowboys. Some of the weirdest stuff in terms of penalties I've ever seen. Chargers, if there's one focus of practice this week, I got to tell you, people are going to get chewed out. They're going to be doing up downs until the next millennium because of what we saw in terms of penalties this week. And I got to tell you, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be hearing an earful about it as well. The penalties maybe had a lot to do with it, but just some weirdness all around this week. And unfortunately, the Chargers couldn't overcome it. Dallas's defense played lights out. Chargers offense could never find its footing. We got our work cut out for us. And going now, 2-3 into next week, week 7 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Life's not about to get any easier, man. We got the Chiefs next week. The Bears, fortunately, the week after that. But the Chargers, they got to find their footing. They got to find their momentum. Otherwise, this season's going to be very long and very difficult and very sad for Chargers fans going for the rest of 2023. Well, keep your head up, Chargers fans. Never say never. Chargers absolutely should be consideration to win next week. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but the Chiefs haven't been playing the same. It's a division matchup. Things can get weird. And then going forward into the year's not over yet, but we certainly have a lot of things to clean up. To prove to Chargers fans and the NFL that the Chargers are any semblance of what we were hoping they would be in the offseason. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Hit us up here on Bleacher Report. If you guys want to see more of the director, hit that follow button up there. We'll continue to come back as often as we can for our post-game reports. And good luck to the Chargers, man. It was a tough week this week. Tough week for Chargers fans. Be mad today. Bolt up tomorrow. Hopefully we can come back and have some form of revenge throughout the course of the season. Guys, thank you again so much for joining me. This has been the director. We'll catch you next time. As always, bolt up and stay frosty. Man, it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year.